There's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com, back from the dead. I've just been recovering from a pretty nasty flu, so I apologize for the lack of videos recently. Also, again, February I'll be dedicating a lot more time to the channel, and one of the things I will be dedicating more time to will be back to the Rogue market. I have so many people keep emailing me, when's the Rogue market going to come back? Did you quit speculation? Etc, etc, etc. I still speculate. I'll show you in this video, I'll show you a few things. I'll show you what I've been speculating on myself, and we're going to look at past trends to try to predict future trends. Now, one of my favorite sites to actually track Magic the Gathering movement and prices is MTGstocks.com. There's a couple of things that MTG Stocks does. Their blog is really good. A lot of times they have some really good information on their blog. And then they also have on this little analytics tab here, you can click on it and you can go to all-time high-low. And then it pulls up cards of today's date. So today's the 13th of January. This is their all-time high. So it'll show you that Serum Visions is $7.58. That's the highest it's ever been. And so it can show you a good time to get out of your cards. If, you know, sometimes there's a good expression that I'm going to steal from the Reddit. I don't know who. I think it was Corbin Hostler. He's one of the big-time speculators in the MTG community, and he says leave the last 25% for someone else. And that's a good rule of thumb. If you already made a good 100% increase or 200% increase, then it's time to get out of the card and leave that last 25% to someone else. So Serum Visions easily could go up another 25% before it sees a reprint or before it just quits going up. Now's the time to get out of most of these cards that are on this list. So this is a very, very good tool from MTG Stocks is their all-time high, and then it also has their all-time low. And all-time low is the same thing. This is when you look and say, oh, maybe it's time for me to actually buy into this. So right now it says Xenagos the Reveler. Very, 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 very powerful Planeswalker from Theros is $6.29. That's the lowest it's ever been. We still have another set to see if we see if Xenagos, it's really Temur that needs help before Xenagos is going to see play. Temur is the clan that's probably seen the least, yeah, I would say the least amount of play. We have with recently Sultai is seeing a lot of play with Sultai Whip, but Temur never really got off the ground. I think Xenagos is struggling because of that, and then you can see the price, of course, of a highly open set of Theros. Even a Planeswalker is only $6.29. So this is a great tool to be like, all right, maybe it's time to pick that up. Xenagos is something that has so much casual appeal. Usually a general rule of thumb for me is if a Planeswalker ever gets below $5, it's pretty safe to pick up, because even some pretty terrible Planeswalkers and even ones that have been printed multiple times have a good chance of being above $5 in the long run. So again, you can just scroll down this and say, oh, Mutavault $11.48. That's interesting. That was a $30 card. We'll have to wait and see if it keeps sliding down, if it'd be a good pickup. So I love the all-time low. And also, it makes sense that when you look at these things, a lot of these are coming off of still being like Khans of Tarkir prices will continue to go down as it's drafted. And then the rotated cards from M14 and the Ravnica blocks, of course, are going to continue to slide down for a few more months before they start to recover, if they do recover. And then, so it's a good time to know that this is the lowest it's been. Is it time for me to pick these up? So these are two things that I use a lot, and I'm going to show you one other thing though that they released on their blog. They released their top 250 risers of 2014. Now, the best indicator of the future is to look at the past. Now, last year was actually a little bit different from the year before. The year before we saw huge, and when I say huge, I mean huge price increases in Legacy and Modern staples especially. Modern hadn't really been, it was so popular that year. That was the year that Modern Masters in Vegas came out, and it really got a lot of people into the Modern format, and we saw prices of Modern staples just skyrocket. I mean, we're talking triple, quadruple in price overnight for a bunch of these. So this year, though, we see a lot, just if we go by price change, I wish there was a way that we could actually just go by, separate by actual value gained. Then we'll see that a lot of the uncommons, of course, in price change, uncommons are going to dominate because they're usually next to nothing, and then they can go they can go crazy because they're in a tier 1 deck. Like Fate Stitcher, for example, no one knew about this card, and then all of a sudden a slew of people ran this at Worlds, and then this card went from 22 cents to $4 overnight. So that's, of course, just an obscene price change. So here we see with this year, a lot of the big winners were modern uncommons that previously had not been put in decks. So we have Fate Stitcher, Forked Bolt, we have Choke. We have Oars of Pontiff, and I'm kicking myself for this one because it was really one of those modern cards that was used in pod and black-white tokens that didn't see any movement. It was still staying at 85 cents. And I always have been just thinking, I had like 2 or 3 copies myself. I'm like, oh, maybe I should spec in that. But I was so hesitant in one-ofs that I decided not to, and now I'm really kicking myself because Orzhov Pontiff is, I think it's actually around, there was another buyout recently, and it's like 13 bucks. Yep, yeah, there's a buyout yesterday, and it's now crazy. So there is a few modern cards that were just left out that you know, supply hadn't really met demand. It's kind of a weird little world we live in right now because TCG Player dominates the amount of stock, that inventory that the entire Magic Gathering world has, and sometimes like everyone goes in this big price bidding or this price war where you'll have like 1,000 copies around the exact same price, and then once those copies all sell out, the next one is a huge jump. So these jumps are not correct. This will fix itself, and you'll see this a lot on these graphs. It'll go like, there'll be like a buyout, and then I'll have to find a good example of this where there'll be a buyout, and then you'll see it slide back down, and then if you actually would take the date, if you actually just follow this trajectory, it'll catch back up. So you see this kind of with Orzhov Pontiff where there's buyout here and then it goes back down. But if you would have followed this regular line, it would have naturally hit about this point anyway. But so anyways, so there is some odd factors that you have to account for in TCG Player and speculators and people buying stuff out and manipulating the market and whatnot. But anyway, let's get back to cards from last year that had the best. So okay, so Modern and Legacy had a few gains here and there, mostly on cards that didn't either people overlooked, like the Orzhov Pontiff, or weren't in decks like Fate Stitcher and Forked Bolts. But what I really want to call 2014 was the year of Commander. We saw Commander prices of a lot of cards have nice steady growth, where other cards out of those sets had very little growth. And what I want to talk about is especially Innistrad and Scars of Mirrodin block Commander staples outperformed everything else in the set. Now, I want you guys to guess what card out of Dark Ascension, very, very unpopular set, and what made it even more unpopular is they ended up printing the one card that people wanted out of that set into Oblivion, which was Lingering Souls. It's been printed so many times in various, it was an FNM promo, I believe it was in Sorin versus T-Balt. There again, Sorin was another popular card that was reprinted in a dual deck, and then it was in the Modern Masters. So, and then Sorin was reprinted. Then I think there was a few other cards, and I can't quite think of right now that were reprinted in various other stuff. So Dark Ascension packs were just dismal. You could actually get boxes. It was the Dragon's Maze of its time. You could actually find boxes for quite cheap and packs for quite cheap. But anyway, I just want you to guess what the most expensive card in Dark Ascension is. And it's a card you'd never think of because it saw absolute zero play in Standard when it was in the format. Now, the one I'm talking about, we'll actually look about this, is it's going to be I can't even think of his name now, Mikaeus. Mikaeus the Unhallowed is the most expensive card in Dark Ascension. We'll find it here. It'll have a price increase here. But that's just one thing one of my huge mistakes. When I started speculating, I was such a spike. I was such a competitive player, and Magic only existed in the realm of competition in my mind. And everyone else was either just not worthy of my time, or I was just blind to the power of Casual and Commander. And that's something I guess my resolution for 2015 is to not be that way. Now, I've always shunned foils because I've hated foils myself, but foils are the safest bet in the entire world. They always hold their price. They can skyrocket like crazy. If I would have picked up foil Fate Stitchers or Forked Bolts or Chokes they're like Thought Scour. Thought Scour is like a $17 foil. That's insane. And then those are things we used to just like wipe off the Thought Scours and make them into proxies. You know, I know so many people that destroy foils and then make proxies out of them. Like what you do is you can print some clear, like a clear sticker thing that goes over foils to make proxies. And I know so many people that do that destroy. One of my friends was going to destroy Raise the Alarms foils to make a proxy. I'm like, no, that card's actually valuable. It's actually like a $1 or $2 foil. So check your foils. Sometimes they're worth money. What my biggest experience with that was we were just messing around with a foil Wear Tear, and then someone opened out of a pack in Dragon's Maze, and they're excited because they got like an Advent the Worm or something at the time that was worth like $1. So I'm like, hey, you got one of the most expensive cards out of the set, which was sad for Dragon's Maze. But then he had the foil Wear Tear as well, and we decided to look it up, and it was like $8, and we're like, whoa, did not expect that. So anyway. Foils is something that I'm going to concentrate on because foils seem to tend to hold their value a lot better and increase a lot quicker in price. The other thing that I'm going to focus on is I'm going to quit shunning casual. Two ways I've done that is it's actually kind of been the year of Commander for me, and I've never showcased any of my Commander decks, which I need to do so. Once we get our HD camera, I'll show you. I'm going to just show you the paper versions of them. Maybe I'll throw them up on MTGO or do a little video about it, but I think you'll like my Commanders. Apparently I'm a black player because all 4 of my Commander decks are black, but I've really got into Commander this year, which 2 years ago I didn't even have a Commander deck. I actually hated the format and refused to play it. And since then and then after that, since I started working at a local game store, being affiliated with a local game store, we wanted people to start playing Commander, so I built a Commander deck, and I had one Commander deck. So for all of 2013 I had one. 2014 I added 3, 4, 5. I built a ton of them, broke some down, but now I have 4 Commander decks that I absolutely adore. And now that I'm starting to get into that whole phase of I'm going to foil my Commander decks out or find different artwork or I'm going to get someone I'm going to have my friend actually alternate art my my Commander. So yeah, I've really gotten into Commander, and I think that is been kind of the theme for everyone in 2014 if you follow prices, because again in 2013 we saw this huge influx of players, and immediately what they got into is standard. So we saw like standard prices go crazy, and then they got bored of standard and they gravitated into modern, and then modern prices went crazy. Well, it seemed like in 2014 both modern and standard were very, very unpopular, and it seemed that the natural shift for the people that did not quit the game was to go over into casual formats. And I'm going to show you, look at like cards like Phyrexian Tyranny, and it's easy to predict why a card like Phyrexian Tyranny went up. And also I want to show you when this happened, because then you can know when the prices. So it looks like November. So okay, so the Commander decks came out here. This is going to be a staple in an upgrade in every one of those Mindseas decks, because the by far the most popular Mindseas Commander is the one that when you draw cards you lose life. So Phyrexian Tyranny says whenever a player draws a card, the player pays 2 life, or unless he pays 2 mana. Or so Phyrexian Tyranny is almost 2 cards in one, because there's a lot of cards that say whenever a player draws a card they lose 1 life. This one's 2 life, and it's in those colors, and it's only 3 mana, so it's quite easy to get out in that Mindseas deck. So you start to see a little bit of a price increase, and then come about February, March, so 3 months is when this card went totally crazy. Now, this again was a Mindseas upgrade, and it's kind of disappointing that, I guess the people in Commander are the same way as they are in Standard or Modern, is they net deck too much. And I actually have if you know Michael off MJ from the channel, he absolutely despises net decking in Commander. He thinks that that's the biggest sin in the entire world. That Commander deck should be something that where you personally create. And I actually have this little theme of mine that I've never ordered cards for my Commander deck. I can only trade for cards for my Commander deck. So I have a list of cards. I'm still looking for a Darkness for my Teysa deck, because I refuse to actually order like a $2 card or something like that, because I'm kind of subscribed to MJ's philosophy that Commander should be something that I slowly build, not all of a sudden have the most powerful deck ever. And my Teysa deck did start out as being quite weak, and now it's become pretty powerful over time, and it still has a ways to go. But again, I think it's a pretty fun little philosophy, is not to net deck, not to just order all the cards and have this like insanely powerful Commander deck off the bat. But anyway, get back to this before I keep getting sidetracked with stories, is we can see when these other commander decks that just came out in last November, when they're going to start seeing the upgrades to Spike. Because I personally was going to start speccing into one of them that I really thought was Stoneforge Mystic, which now has begun to spike, and also Steel Shaper's Gifts that were not included in the white commander deck. And they're both just amazing upgrades. You have also cards like Batterskull and things like that I think that people are going to naturally want to put in that commander deck. And I think that if the market is last year's market is any indicator of this year's market, I think the white deck, at least at my local game store and just the feeling I've had at other places, has been the most popular, at least fun-wise, out of the commander decks. I would say black is the one I've seen the least of, black or blue, and the red, green, and white have all been pretty popular. So all the upgrades to the red, white, and green commander decks from this year are probably going to spike around March, and Phyrexian Tyranny is a good indicator of that. And again, this is only in casual. You only see Phyrexian Tyranny as in that Mindseas deck, and it has gone up like crazy. That is a huge gain from a 40-cent card to a $2 card. So, and it probably has some room to grow as well, as again, the more people that build that Mindseas deck, the more people are going to pick up Phyrexian Tyranny. So a lot of these cards that we see here are going to be Mindseas upgrades. So there's my Stony Silence. Remember when people ridiculed me for saying picking up Stony Silence, and it was one of the greatest increase of 2014? Tisk, tisk, tisk. It's at $2. I picked up a bunch on paper, but it was mostly an MTGO speculation. I actually sold out a lot of my Stony Silence inventory when it hit 2 tickets on MTGO, and then it's fallen down again because Affinity is dismal on MTGO. Affinity is just getting really hated out by Delver right now, and so not a lot of people are playing it. Alrighty, so again, now we'll come back down here. You got to ignore some of these. We had, again, some of the modern cards that were overlooked went up, but let's see if we can find some other cards. There we go. Here's another one. This goes in the Mindseas decks. Cezanne, Perverter of Truth. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. So again, they're drawing 2 more cards, which with the Mindseas commander is going to be 2 more life. And so that Mindseas deck just drains you. And it actually is a quite fast drain, and it hits all opponents basically at the same time. And yeah, it's just really, really, really powerful commander deck, and a lot of people enjoy playing it, and that's why all the upgrades to it just went like crazy. So again, this went from 83 cents to $3.50. So anyway, let's go down here and see some that actually have like big price increases. There's of course like the Sliver Overlord. We saw slivers being printed casual again. Overlord went crazy because all of a sudden we have these brand new slivers, and people get a sliver out of the new set, and then they decide, oh, I'm going to build a sliver casual deck or sliver commander deck. In my local game store, we actually have a binder called Slivers that has every sliver in it, because we have so many people that never play at the shop that we've never seen before just come in and ask if we have any slivers. I mean, slivers are by far the most popular tribal that people come in and buy. So again, that would be something I'd have overlooked in a couple years ago when my hastiness to disregard the commander and casual format. So Teferi's Puzzle Box again goes in Mindseas, and then we have more slivers. So Chalice of Void, this card's going crazy in Modern. It shuts Delver down. But most of these you can find some sort of justification of why it's gone up. This Helix Pinnacle, totally casual. It's an alternate win condition. If you have 100 more tower counters on Helix Pinnacle, you win the game. So it's something you can play on turn number 1, and if you're a ramp deck in any sort of green deck, you can just put all your excess mana into Helix Pinnacle. So you use all the cards that double your mana and untap all your lands in each opponent's turn and blah, 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 and then tutor this up. And so again, this is strictly a commander card that has seen a huge price increase because of casual players. Alrighty, so most of these, again, are all going to be cards that are mostly the casual crowd. But so talking about specific, now let's go over to Goldfish. Goldfish again is my go-to of the price. It's these Goldfish is just so streamlined. Everything on mtggoldfish.com is just really well laid out, and at least price wise. So I just love it using. I mean, I'm not affiliated with MTG Goldfish in any way, so I don't want any hate there. I'm not trying to like maliciously convince you to use this. I've just loved this ever since it's come out. So anyway, I'm just going to show you what I'm talking about here with Dark Ascension. So Dark Ascension, Mikaeus the Unhallowed is the most expensive card. Look at this is it even is on WoW. It was even on on online as well. But anyway, so Mikaeus is $9.40, and then we have a big jump until about $6 for Huntmaster. So there is some like Thalia, which is a legacy card. We have Gravecaller, which is, I would say, competitive and casual, and we have Sorin, which is sees some play in competitive, and Huntmaster, which does see some play in Jund. But then it's like even like Eberus Blinding Blade. These were like a quarter a piece at one point. I mean, these were such bulk mythic. When you open this, you hated opening this, and now it actually pays for the pack. And I mean, it was the big cards out of this were like Falconwrath Aristocrat, Geralf's Messenger. We had Sorin, Huntmaster. Those were the big cards out of this set. And now I'm even thinking that a lot of cards out of Dark Ascension have room to grow. We have like Havengul Lich that's in the top 10 of the cards, and Moonveil Dragon. Both of these I can see going up in the next year. But it's really Mikaeus that I just want to look at and show you what the demand of so here's Theros a year ago, the start of 2014 or end of 2013. Mikaeus was about $4, and then it's just had this steady growth. This is why I like casual cards, is because they don't do this modern spiky thingy. They just slowly sell their copies as supply meets demand, and it's a nice increase. And you can find I found like 10 of these that had about a 100% increase from the rotated cards from the 2013, 2014, the M2014, M2013, Dark Ascension, Innistrad, Avacyn Restored, and then like Scars of Mirrodin type blocks. And they're all, basically all of these that had about 100% increase were casual cards. And like Balefire Dragon, there's another one that's gone insanely up in value, based solely on casual type formats. So anyway, let's quit my blabbing now, and let's actually go back to cards that I think have room to grow from recently upgraded. So we're going to take Mikaeus and as our indicator of what the future is going to do, and let's look at some cards from the core set 2014 that just rotated, and then we'll look at the Return to Ravnica and Return to Ravnica block sets and see what can go up. So 2014, the cards that I really like, I like Scourge of Valkas. We're entering into a dragon set, and I really think that Scourge of Valkas is going to be a card that the casual players are going to want to put in their dragon deck, because it says whenever a dragon enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to each creature, to target creature or target player, where X is a number of dragons you control. So kind of devotion to dragons. And thinking like people might try to go like a Dragonstorm deck and then just combo off being Scourge of Valkas being one of them. So I love Ring of Three Wishes. I see this everywhere in Commander. Like so many players play this, especially from the new red Commander deck. And I'm pretty certain we're already seeing a little bit of movement. Yeah, it's starting to go back up. So that's a great pickup with Ring of Three Wishes. I do like Liliana of the Dark Realms. It's under that $5 price tag. I think it might go down a little more. If it does, it's definitely time. Like Black decks love this because if she ults, it's a lovely, lovely feeling in Commander, because all your swamps add 4 black instead of 1. Then we have Primeval Bounty, which is a nice Commander card as well. Just screams value. And see, all of these, Darksteel Forge is $3 already, and probably can continue to go up because of the red deck. In fact, let's see if it has. Yep, it started to go up again, and I think most of that is going to be from the red Commander deck that utilizes artifacts. So M14, there's a lot of, and I like Mythics. Mythics are really I think we have a little bit longer to wait on rares. Mythics are going to spike in casual formats before the rares do. These are going to be a year or two behind. I mean, it's the competitive person in me likes Scavenging Ooze at $5. That's a bargain. In 2 or 3 years, everyone's going to be shaking their head that this card was ever $5. It still sees heavy legacy play and heavy modern play. It's in one of the most popular decks, the Junk mid-range deck in modern. and it does a really good job at shutting down Delver if they don't answer it immediately. So there is some rares, but for this reason, we're just going to focus on the mythics. So even in Dragon's Maze, we have some decent little pickups here. We have I love Voice. Voice is going to go up though, 16 bucks. But I don't like to really spec on cards that are already very valuable, because the best thing the Voice can do is go up to 30 bucks, and that's not even a 100% increase. Ralzeric's almost at that price point I like. But Progenitor Mimic, very, very popular card in a lot of the decks, the green-blue decks that like to copy a ton of things. And Progenitor Mimic is a staple in that. So each one of your upkeep, you get to copy the card that you've chosen, and it just gets out of hand. I actually do like Maze's End. I've seen a lot of commander decks, especially 5-color commander decks, that do run Maze's End, because they run one of each of the gates, and it's an alternate win condition. So Legion Initiative's another one that might be nice. I mean, all of these are around $1. Not a big fan of Dead Bridge Chan. I know a lot of people do play it. It's just so slow, but even in Commander, I guess it's not as bad. So Breaking and Entering, I'll talk about that later. Breaking and Entering is one of my cards that I actually have spec'd on, and I'll pull up my TCG Player profile to show you some of the cards that I've spec'd on, some of my hits and my misses. So let's go over to Gatecrash. Gatecrash, Aurelius Fury's okay for Commander, I guess. War Leader's already seen some price increase. It's now at $4. It's one of the more expensive cards out of Gatecrash is Aurelia the War Leader, believe it or not. Then we have cards like the Enter the Infinite that are only $1. I've seen a lot of combo in Commander actually run that. I know this is in a Legacy deck as well. Giant Ataphage, I think it might be a little bit better things to do in Commander, but it's $1 for a, it's a big, this is such a Timmy card. It's a big fatty that populates itself. Gideon is under that $5 Planeswalker. Look at that. Gideon is one of the more expensive cards out of Gatecrash. This pile of a card is one of the more expensive cards. I love Hellkite Tyrant, and this has already seen some movement. It was like $1 a couple weeks ago, and this card's already at $2.50. It's perfect in that red commander, so in March I'm gonna think that there's gonna be a spike in this. So Hellkite Tyrant would be the perfect pickup. And my pickup of all pickup is Prinespeaker Zagana. I still believe that this is a top 10 commander card. This is, or cards that is used as commander. At one point, Prinespeaker Zagana was the most played commander when it first came out. Everyone was building Prinespeaker Zagana decks. And it's now down to $1.50. It's something that any sort of, especially the Bant Flicker decks, absolutely love to exploit. And it just draws you so many cards. And of course, drawing cards in Commander is such, I mean, so many players love to just draw a lot of cards. That's why you have the Reliquary Towers and the spell books and yada yada yada. So your maximum hand size can be as high as possible or infinite. And then Prinespeaker Zagana can draw you so many cards, and you can combo off and whoop-de-doo. So there's Prinespeaker Zagana at $1.50. I think is probably the best pickup out of Gatecrash. And we should start seeing this card go back up in value, I would say summertime, especially if Commander follows the trend and becomes even more popular. And I think we're going to start seeing with Friday Night Magic's being able to be sanctioned as Commander. I think that casual formats are going to see a lot more play, and therefore cards go up in value. I think I'm glad that Wizards is actually doing this, because Spikes have dominated the game for so long. Like, everything has revolved around Standard, Modern, Legacy for forever, basically. And the casual people are like, oh, sorry, you guys can play casually, but nothing's in it for you. And then we saw Commander start to make leagues. Like, Commander was not even an official format. It was something just a bunch of people started defining rules for and whatnot, and then it took Wizards a while to actually pick it up, and now it's probably the second most popular format next to Standard, I would say, in just sheer amounts of games played. And it still isn't supported in any sort of competitive nature, or even like as far as prize. And now with Commander leagues and Friday Night Magic being sanctioned as Commander, I think that might be able to change. And we'd like to see some other casual formats actually start to see some fruition, because not everyone's a competitive player. A lot of people like to just have fun. Pre-releases are by far still the most lucrative, or I think more people attend pre-releases than anything. And I think because it appeals to both casual, because they're getting new cards and playing new mechanics, and also competitive because it's their first opportunity at new cards as well. So it appeals to both of those classes. And I think that we need to start getting the casual players more involved in actual, like, not competitive play, but organized play. So anyway, we'll look at one more with the Return of Ravnica. There's a lot of juicy targets. My absolute favorite targets are Model Worm at $1. It's such, again, a nice Timmy card. You get basically 10 power and 10 toughness for 6 mana, or for 5 mana, excuse me. That again goes in that Bant Flicker type format, or even in a Populate type commander deck. Speaking of Populate, there's 2 commanders. There's Trostani, and there's also the little elf guy that Rise the Redeemed that love to populate stuff. And Armada Worm is one of the more juicier populate targets as a 5/5 trample worm. Trostani is another card that I absolutely love to pick up. It's $2.08. I believe it is. Yeah, it's starting to go back up again, but $2 is the lowest it's ever been for a card that is very, very popular and very powerful in Commander. $2 is such an amazing time to get into it. So, Ufar Hellkite is already starting to see some spike because of dragons. There you go. It's going up. You might have missed the boat on that. I don't know how much more room it does have to grow. It says whenever a dragon you control attacks, which is basically the theme out of the latest set, is whenever a dragon, each one of those legendary dragons says whenever a dragon attacks. So anyway, then we have other cards like Whirlspine Worm that has started to see a little bit of spike. That was down at $2 at one point. Again, it's the Timmy of all Timmy cards at 11 mana, 15/15 that puts out worms when it dies. I like Niv Mizzet Draco Genius. It's a commander that easily can be a commander. Jared's actually one of the more powerful commander cards, either in a commander deck or as a commander. And he has been in a dual deck, but I think $1.23 is pretty low for him as well. And we have Jace at around around $3. I think that Jace might be a decent little pickup, even though that event deck or the dual deck was printed very, very heavily. And people bought this like crazy for the remand in the deck. So there's a lot of these floating around. And Angel Serenity is a pretty decent commander card as well, as it exiles, up to 3 commanders you can actually exile, which is pretty sweet. So, anywho, I just wanted to shed light that do not overlook the casual formats. Casual will eventually have that steady growth, and then within a few years you can be shaking your head and being like, what? Vorinclex Voice Hunger is $14. I remember this was a dollar card. I literally do remember when this was a dollar card. And if I opened this card, I'd be, swearing underneath my breath that I had to open up a Vorinclex I'd never, ever, 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 ever use because it was such a trash card. That's, that's the spike in me talking. And now that my eyes have been open to casual, then it's a lot easier for me to see the value in these cards. So again, a $13 Phyrexian Obliterator is one of those cards that is $26 because it hits both spots. It's such a casual card, and it actually still can be a competitive card. It's seen playing a mono black devotion list in the modern format, and same thing with Elesh Norn. It's just such a mean commander card as well as a competitive card that both of those are very expensive due to that. So Sheoldred again, basically only seeing much play because of commander. It's up to $9. This was also, a pre-release promo, I believe? I knew there was a way to get an alternate Sheoldred, a different picture with it. So, but that's up to $9 because it basically it's one of those cards that's in any sort of reanimator type strategy, which is almost every black deck. Sheoldred is one of those cards you want in your deck. So again, we'll look at just a few more here. Again, this video has gone quite long. If you're still with me, then you must have the patience of a saint. We can look at like Mirrodin Besieged. Blightsteel Colossus does see some legacy play. Consecrated Sphinx. Wasn't this just reprinted was it in the blue commander deck? But I mean, $11.50. It did see some competitive play, but once it rotated, it didn't see any play after that in any sort of competitive format. And then casual picked the slack back up and shot the price back up. And then we have most of these cards out of this set were in the more competitive realm. So let's go back over to Scars of Mirrodin. Yeah, Scars definitely has some juicy cards that are only seeing play in the casual environment. There's Platinum Imperium in 8/8 for 8. Your life total can't change. It's a $6 card. This card again was down to a bulk mythic at one point. We have the Geth Lord of the Vault that's around $5 and is again a nice little commander card. I know that it can be used as a commander and actually is quite fun commander. I've seen some people actually utilize it to pretty good effect as it does mill, and you can put stuff into play. So you get a mill and throw a card into play, which is two things that, of course, casual players love to do. So, and then there's like asceticism cards, even out of rarity, that only have the casual. They're only going to see play in casual formats. That, of course, like asceticism is a $5.50 rare. That's what is that, the highest? So it's the second highest rare in the set. Third highest rare next to Genesis Wave, and oh no, it is the second highest. It's just Blackcleave Cliffs that is higher as far as rare-wise out of the format. So do not scoff at the casual cards. They do hold value and they do increase over time. So for 2015, that is going to be my kind of speculation resolution, is to not overlook foils and casual cards. We'll look at my TCG player profile in the next video. I've gone way over time on this video. Again, I apologize for being long-winded. I hope you got something good out of this kind of tutorial video of how I speculate on cards. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.